How to marry happily. The biggest challenge our world faces today is in the marriage arena. Marriage is so important to societies and should not be toyed with. The psychological well-being of every individual has its foundations in the sort of homes they grew up in. Charity, they say, begins at home. The opportunity to grow up in a normal, loving family where husband and wife live in harmony is the greatest gift that a couple can give to their children. Within such developmental environment, a healthy sense of self will typically develop, and generally the individual will be able to maintain consistent patterns or experiences as well as self-regulate and self-soothe throughout life. Growing up in a dysfunctional home, either without the presence and cooperation of both mother and father, usually creates personality difficulties for individuals, which have far-reaching consequences possibly throughout all their lives. Many marriages are suffering because one or both of the couple were nurtured in a dysfunctional environment, and unfortunately the children in these marriages would inherit the consequences. It is therefore imperative that each of us take steps to ensure that we equip ourselves well for marriage in order that we do not create problems for our children in the future, but rather be a blessing to their lives by showing them the beauty of harmony in marriage. Such equipping obviously must start ideally before marriage, and requires that we acknowledge our shortcomings. As humans, we are social creatures, and most of our learning is through observation of others, especially adults that we trust. As your children grow up watching how you as a couple conduct yourselves, they are unconsciously learning how to behave in marriage in the future. In fact, they have no other choice. Indeed, most of the cultural norms regarding marriage have been passed on this way. Married people should not destroy the future of their children before it begins by treating each other shoddily or wickedly in marriage. Romantic love, though important to keep alive, is unstable and temporal, and cannot be expected to remain burning for the whole duration of the marriage. Those who count on the power of romantic love alone to carry them through the difficulties of marriage are living in self-deceit. To be good marriage materials and worthy examples to our children whilst keeping happy as individuals, here are some mindsets that we must adopt and some capabilities that we must build in. Build the capacity to be happy all by yourself. Many people postpone their happiness waiting for marriage, and others who also sacrifice all of who they are and the things that make them happy simply because they got married, expecting that their marriages would become their new source of happiness. They see marriage as the ultimate happiness tonic. They cannot be more wrong. Happiness is the result of living a life of meaning and purpose. Therefore, if you cannot be happy all by yourself as a single person, it is unlikely that marriage can become a source of happiness for you. We each need to be committed to our own happiness if we are to be successful in marriage, and this can only happen if we find a purpose for living. How we interpret issues must be done in the context of the meaning that life holds for us. Especially when it comes to our loved ones, we need to refine our interpretation of events in ways that promote our happiness, rather than interpret in ways that are harmful to our happiness. We must learn and adopt skills of interpreting our spouse's actions in ways that ensure that our happiness is preserved. Do not throw away a happy life because of marriage. Take care of yourself. Many married people endure extreme self-neglect to keep their marriages and families going, forgetting that staying married is different from thriving in marriage. You cannot be properly useful to your spouse and children when you are not thriving psychologically. For mothers especially, your state of mind has a direct impact on the psychological well-being of your children right from the time you get pregnant. If you do not generate and maintain your own happiness and psychological well-being, then you are putting the psychological well-being of your children at risk. You cannot give what you do not have, so you need to ensure that physically, socially, intellectually and emotionally you are taking care of yourself. Many of us get so busy that we barely find time to care for our bodies. We have poor eating habits, get little sleep, exercise little, and allow our weight to get out of control, all because of marital responsibilities. Some of us neglect our relatives and friends, and some stop reading completely. Doing this often results in resentment later on when it all backfires as a result of the fact that the stress of this neglect of ourselves creates problems for the relationship, and make us regret the sacrifices we made. We might end up without friends and relatives whom we can count on, because for a long time we failed to make room in our lives for them. Be ready for change and to keep growing throughout the relationship. This world is full of change. In actual fact, everything is in a state of perpetual change. Without being willing and ready to change how we think, our mindsets and our ways of doing things, conflicts will arise in our lives to stress us. The way to enjoy sound mental health is to be ever adaptable and flexible. There are so many of our beliefs, behaviors and opinions that we must be willing to revise. These include even our personal interests as we grow older, so that we have something to interest us in every stage of life. If you used to love playing soccer, for example, a time will come when you can no longer play soccer. Without finding new interests, we might end up with a boring life which only entails picking on our spouses and engaging in fruitless quarrels with them. We need to be ready to change our mentality, most of which is created by the kind of upbringing we had. We must not make a god of how things are done in our families by thinking they are the best, and at the same time we must not rubbish our partner's way of doing things even if they do not appear to make sense. Always remember that whatever you say or think that this is not how something is done, you just mean that it is not how the folks in your house do it. There are other worlds out there which hold aspects of the truth that we are ignorant of, but which can enrich our lives if we can assimilate them, so let us be ready for change and growth. Many couples spend a lot of effort trying to get their partners to get back to the people they used to be when they first met. Be ready to flow along with your partner in ways that would lead to both of you remaining happy. Do not try to change your spouse because you are unlikely to succeed, rather focus on changing your own mindset and behaviors in ways that ensure that you remain happy. If you have created a template of what an ideal spouse should be in your mind and all you spend your time doing is forcing your spouse into that mold, then you would only end up with frustration and unhappiness. Complaining about how things or your spouse has changed does not stop those changes from occurring. One of the most important things that make life worth living is growth, and it comes through learning, which also comes through encountering challenges. It is important to see problems as learning opportunities so that we do not fight because of them. Rather than stress about problems, we should have a positive attitude to them so that we do not blame our spouses for them and fight them. Learning new ways of thinking and behaving help you to remain happy in spite of changes which occur in your life and marriage, and help you to grow as an individual. Do whatever is within your power to learn and to grow to become a better version of yourself instead of deteriorating. Do not be destroyed by your marriage. You are the key to your own happiness, but the lock keeps changing, so change so that you can keep unlocking your happiness. Submit to your partner. Everyone likes freedom. Indeed, the feeling that we are free to choose contributes significantly to our psychological well-being. When we opt for marriage, however, we have in a way mortgaged that freedom. Deliberately sacrificing your right to free choice in the interest of your partner's happiness is a basic rule of marriage which, when broken, leads to unhappiness. Many people want to be married but still enjoy the freedom of being single. You need to be sensitive to the emotional impact of your every move on your partner, and care about how they feel about your activities. If your spouse opposes your stance on an issue, you had better reconsider it. Taking turns to give and just to make your spouse happy without holding it against them is a major ingredient of a happy marriage. If you fight over it and manage to have your way, know that there would be a future cost to your happiness emerging from it. Another aspect of submitting to your spouse is letting your spouse into every facet of your life, seeking his or her opinion and input in everything you do and gaining enthusiastic support from him or her. This requires that you take interest in whatever interests your spouse. You must never show disdain towards the things that interest or make your partner happy, as long as they are legitimate, because when they are happy, then they are more likely to please you. In fact, you must encourage whatever makes them happy. You must also not be contemptuous of the things which your partner finds hurtful. We are different as men and women, as people coming from different backgrounds and as people with different personalities, so we may not understand or appreciate why certain things should get on our partner's nerves so much. We do not need to understand, and it does not have to make sense to us. Let us just learn what our partners are not comfortable with and behave accordingly out of love. Keep being a valuable partner. Marriage is work and requires deliberate and thoughtful application of effort. If you think that by feelings alone you can run a successful marriage, then you are in for trouble. We are all happy when people go out of their way to do thoughtful things for us. We usually do not think about whether there were nice feelings motivating those acts or not. We are just glad they did those things. The motivation to carry out acts of kindness towards our partners is usually easy at the beginning of every love relationship because of the hormonal changes which occur in the brain when we are in love. With time, however, the effect of these hormones wanes, affecting how we feel about our partners. Meanwhile, our partners would have gotten used to the nice treatment they received from us and expect it to continue. We need self-motivation to continue doing those things if we are to please our partners, because the desire to do them would be diminished and at times completely gone. We must not take each other for granted, neglecting our partner's well-being simply because we do not feel like it or we think that they have nowhere to go or that it is not worth it. We all must do what we have to do and do them even when we do not feel like it. We must always think about the fact that by so doing we avoid future complications in our lives, so that in a sense we actually do ourselves a favor. We cannot be married and do only what we feel like doing. Be grateful and forgiving. It is expected that our spouses should treat us with kindness, love, consideration and care, but it is also important for our own sake that we do not develop an entitlement mentality which makes demanding of each other and at the same time ungrateful. True love is not forced but freely given. Marriage should not be about two people demanding from each other what they feel are their rights. It is about partners committing to being good to each other out of their own free will. Even Jesus, after giving his life for us whilst we were sinners, does not compel us to serve him but has given us the free will to choose whether to do so. We should be willing to do same for our spouses. It is important that we value and appreciate every little thing our spouses do for us and be truly grateful for them. Research in the past 15 years has revealed that forgiving and expressing gratitude are critical foundations for a person's sense of well-being, doing wonders for one's own health. When we are ungrateful, we create the environment for our partners to be unresponsive to our needs and wants. We have to learn creative ways of showing appreciation for every little favor we receive. Secondly, we should be careful about the trap of becoming intolerant of our partner's shortcomings. We tend to tolerate strangers more readily than we do to our own partners, and are more greatly hurt by their offenses against us and hold on to grudges against them for longer periods. Let us learn to forgive, otherwise our partners will become too careful when dealing with us and lose the fun in being married to us. When we at times wonder why they are moody around us but excited and happy when around their friends, let us remember that our intolerance and unforgiving nature may be the reason. Let us learn to forgive our partners so that they can feel free and be expressive when they are with us, instead of being apprehensive that we would attack them for something they have done or are doing. Conclusion. After all that has been said, let us know that not every one of us has the capacity to marry, but most people have the desire to marry. If you find yourself by mistake married to someone who had no business getting married in the first place, be wise enough to see it and take appropriate measure, otherwise you could die of your marriage. And if you discover on your own that you are incapable of marriage, please advise yourself accordingly.